Another victory for the Celtics and another 30-plus point game for Jayson Tatum as he tallied 33 against the 76ers, and the Celtics' 128-101 win over the 76ers. I am Josue Pavon alongside Bobby Manning. This segment is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Head to Manscaped.com and use the promo code MAX20 at Manscaped.com. Bobby, Jayson Tatum continues to do what he's essentially been doing ever since that first game in the bubble, that first regular season game in the bubble. He's completely turned this thing around. And in the postseason, he's continued to elevate his game, especially from the perimeter. He went 8 for 10 from the three-point arc against the 76ers, or 8 for 12, excuse me. But overall, he's just showing that dominance that we're continuing to see out of him. And it looks like sky's the limit here for Jayson Tatum.
What do you even say? A couple weeks ago, we were talking about that 2 for 18 game, worried about the finishing, worried about the consistency in the shooting, and it's all out the window now. He's back to being a 50% three-point shooter like we saw in that not the MVP. We'll get there one day. But all NBA run that he had back in February and March. This is what he was. He was a guy who could step around those screens that they throw out there so often. The defense is letting him. He's going to pull up and drain threes. He's got the step back. He's got the finish, which looked good in this game as well. And what I love most about him now after 2 games, he wins game 1 essentially with that big block inside. I think it was on Harris that sent them on transition for the Brown 3. And rebounding. What do you have here? 5 rebounds later. He had the double-double last game. But he has these rebounds, especially at the end of game 1. Seals the game, rebounding through Embiid, rebounding with these bigger bodies. He has the length to do it. He touches every part of the game. And yeah, like that's all you ask for a superstar. It's no turnovers, touching defense, touching offense. He does it all. And he was the one in this game that made it look like a 1-8 type matchup, as we said in the recap.
Yeah, definitely. He looked like – I talked about it in the postgame show, right? He looked like a guy – he just had that superstar swag. And what I mean by that is not only do you see it on the court, but you saw it off the court. He's on his feet. He's cheering his guys on. He's treating the game as if it's a one-point game as opposed to a blowout. You're seeing his body language on the court in terms of how he handles the offense. Like, he just looks – and we saw it before. We saw it before the stoppage, right, Bobby? But to see him continue this, I mean, it's really impressive because obviously everyone had the stoppage, right? You stop playing for X amount of months. You go back into the swing of things, the training camp and all that. But to piggyback on your highest marks of your career, and I get it, he is young and this is his breakout season, so to speak, but to continue that on and then take it up another level is what makes Jayson Tatum especially special, very special in my eyes.
And we look at his 3 playoff runs now. First year, he's that off-ball shooter. Later in that stages of that playoff run, he gets on the ball and makes the plays on the ball that show the potential there. Second run, it's all disoriented. He's trying to find his spots to score in between, trying to force the mid-range a little too much. And now, head and shoulders, the face of the team, running the offense in many situations, 5 assists here today. He's blossomed as an on-the-ball guy who can attack off the dribble, and the growth has been so quick. And you talk about that swagger. 8 of 12 three-point shooting, that just blows off the stat sheet. But how about the 3 pulling up from Damian Lillard range at the end of the shot clock there before the second quarter ends? And it looks like it was a pull-up shot. It wasn't a heave. He just pulled up from there and drained it. He is on some kind of tear right now, and it does make you think, where do we put this guy in the hierarchy of the league right now? Like, even just these 2 games, and we can project it's going to continue for him. He's rocketing up the hierarchy. I saw Jeff Goodman here on CLNS Media tweet. He's a top 10 player right now. I probably have him just below that, the consistency factor. I still need to see it throughout this whole run. But, it's not crazy.
I had him top 10 before the stoppage, believe it or not, and now it's bettering my point. But again, I got him right at number 10. Like, he just breaks the list in my opinion, and of course I'm still sticking with that with the way he's been playing. But that sort of leads into my last and final question for you, Bobby. Heading into the series, the one advantage that everyone was talking about Philly having is having the best player in the series, right? We constantly hear that throughout the postseason, year after year, and I still think it rings true, even though we're not necessarily seeing that. But to go back to my point about that superstar swag, when you compare the two, I mean, it's clear why the other one resonates better with his teammates as opposed to what we're seeing from Joel Embiid. Look, not to say that Joel Embiid, if he went out there and dropped 55, that all of his teammates are going to suddenly wake up, but you sort of have to lead the example here, right? And if you look at the two examples that we have in front of us, I mean, Jayson Tatum's got him beat by a mile.
Yeah, I hate to kill Embiid for this. He's the guy out there. Ben Simmons is out of the bubble, so if he was struggling right now, he'd be the guy everyone was hammering, but he's not even out there. Brett Brown deserves a big amount of the blame for this, and Embiid's right to bash him for that strategy. He has so much defensive potential that's being untapped right now by this game plan that makes no sense, frankly. But Embiid shares his burden of the blame too. He's pouting. He's dropping his head. When the doubles come, he gets frustrated if things don't go perfectly. It feels like he and that team just want to go right at Daniel Tyson's side, isolate that matchup, and have it come easy. It's not going to come easily for this team. They got to have good sets. You saw it a few times where he gets on the roll, faces up, dribbles into it. Stan Van Gundy was saying it during the game. They don't adjust. They don't persevere through the tough moments. Now, Tatum, he's had those moments too in his career. Last year, I think there was a lot of frustration internally on his end. This year, sometimes when he doesn't get the calls and it's a bad night, he has a tough time getting through it, but he has a better team, a better situation to lift him up. It's close between those two. But now through these two games, I did a top 25 list last week on my podcast, and it doesn't feel right to have him beat above him. It really doesn't. I don't think there's any excuse for Tatum to be below him on a top 25 list. And I'm going to have to adjust that. Like, this series is the way it's going. It's a big statement for both of them in opposite directions.
Once again, this segment of the Garden Report is brought to you by Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and enter the promo code MAX20 for 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code MAX20. That's manscaped.com. Use the promo code MAX20. For Bobby Manning, I am Josue Pavon. The Celtics and the Sixers will tip off Friday night, 6:30. You already know where to go for your coverage after the game. Post-game show, CLNSmedia.com. All your Celtics coverage that you need coming right at you from CLNS Media.